Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching 6th part of What If Naruto Became Power Hungry. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
A few days after the group began their work, Sasuke requested to speak with Naruto after training. They were in one of the training grounds Orochimaru had initially provided to Sasuke, the area around them littered with craters from their clashes. Naruto was impressed. He had seen Sasuke train before, but the number of results the Uchiha obtained seemed to increase with each session. Indra reincarnate indeed. What's up? Naruto inquired as they moved to one of the room's corners. I considered what you said about Itachi. Sasuke took some time to think about what he wanted to say after Naruto didn't respond, instead motioning for his friend to continue. I can't forgive him because he betrayed our family even if he did it to protect me. I never expected you to forgive him. The question now is whether you still despise him. I believe he should have sided with the clan. I'd never sell them out even if it meant going to war. Naruto said as he patted him on the shoulder. I understand, I agree. I want to keep you and Karen safe, but I'd never sell one of you out to save the other. And what would you do if you had to? If you couldn't save us both? That's why I'm doing this, or at least part of the reason. I've experienced loss and want to be strong enough to never experience it again. Sasuke paused for a moment, then smirked confidently at Naruto and said, well, I want to be strong as well, so let's stop slacking and get back to training. Let's go, Naruto replied, smiling. After 2 months. It wasn't easy, but Orochimaru was able to combine Naruto and Sasuke's chakra to create a brand new, clearly powerful chakra after extensive experiments. He summoned the two and prepared to instill that chakra in one of his test subjects. What do you think? Naruto asked the clone currently under Kurama's control. It's similar to the old man's chakra, but not nearly as pure as his was. That's probably because the fusion isn't perfect. As long as we get the right chakra, we can worry about perfecting it later. Kurama nodded, and the four of them watched as the chakra was injected into the test subject, a dark-skinned Auto Nin. He began to squirm after a few moments as the powerful energy tried to acclimate to his body. It won't work because the chakra is too unstable. It keeps attempting to diffuse itself, Kurama explained. Orochimaru took some notes before saying that the test subject screamed in pain for a moment before collapsing dead. I've had trouble keeping the chakra together. It fuses almost as if it wants to become one, but it never stays that way for long. It's possible that it's because its vessel isn't strong enough to contain its power, Naruto said, shaking his head. The fusion is also only minimal. Without a perfect fusion, you can say goodbye to the Rinnegan, Kurama added. There's also the rapid aging process that we have yet to begin, Orochimaru explained. One problem at a time. Let's start with perfecting the fusion. Do you have any suggestions? Naruto said. Perhaps. If we condensed a large amount of both of your chakras into a small space, we might be able to create 6 paths chakra, as you call it. Take as much as you need, but just get it done. Orochimaru said with his usual smile. Gladly. After 10 months. Naruto and Karen were spending time together, both sitting on the redhead's bed and relaxing, when Karen asked after a few moments of comfortable silence. Hello, Naruto. Yeah? How come you helped me that day? He said with a smile. In the Chunin examinations? He leaned against her and looked up in thought as she nodded. I'm not sure. She gave him a playful glare as she turned to face him. You always know, she explained. He said, shaking his head. I knew you'd get in trouble, and at first I just thought it'd be fun to play the knight in shining armor. That's what you were, she laughed. Arriving just in time to save the life of a defenseless maiden. I couldn't let my princess down, he said exaggeratedly, before laughing at her blush. Did you know that we... No, I didn't rescue you on purpose, but everything else is as foreign to me as it is to you. So you've never been with anyone? What about that blonde girl? She teased. I went on dates with her, but that was about it. It was fun, but I wasn't going to get intimate with someone I didn't care about, he explained. You'd kill without hesitation, but casual fun is out of the question? I'm not going to break some poor girl's heart just to have fun with her. I'm not that much a jerk. How noble of you, she remarked, rolling her eyes. You talk as if you've never had fun with anyone else, he observed. Of course not. She exclaimed, blushing. Really? Not even a single date? He teased, realizing his error when she looked down. I wasn't particularly well liked in Kusa. I'm sorry, I didn't mean, he apologized. It's okay, she said, cutting him off. I miss my mom. She would have liked to meet you. I'd like to meet her as well. Perhaps one day. What exactly do you mean? He said with a sigh. I haven't told anyone except Karama, but my ultimate goal isn't the Rinnegan. It isn't? What could you want after that? She inquired, and he smiled. He had always admired her inquisitive nature. The Rinnegan is extremely powerful, and it has the ability to resurrect the dead. She perked up, but he cut her off before she could say anything. The cost is the caster's own life, and it only works on recently deceased people. Oh, she said, disappointed. He tightened his grip on her and said, my point is that the Rinnegan is just a means to an end for me. My endgame is much bigger. He said with a smile. I won't promise you anything because I'm not sure if I'll be able to, but if I can, I'll reunite you with your mother. She looked up at him, and his red Sharingan eyes met her ruby ones. She inched closer, and just as their lips were about to meet, she asked a question. Why? A smile tugged at his lips, and he closed the gap, luring her into a kiss that left her breathless. They parted, and he never once looked into her eyes as he spoke. Because I care about you. A month later. Tsunade walked into her office to find the group waiting for her. It had taken a lot of work, but Konoha had all but recovered from Naruto's escape a year before. The infrastructure had been completely repaired, and the economy had managed to hold up fairly well despite the circumstances. On occasion, the people were still grieving their loss, but for the most part, they had moved on, though a large majority still blamed Naruto for what had happened. They weren't wrong, but it had caused a major schism between the village as a whole and the undead Cage and his wife. Minato insisted on bringing Naruto back, regardless of what anyone said. He claimed that Naruto could be redeemed and that all he needed to do was defeat the blonde to bring him back to his senses. To that end, he had completed the Rasengan. The blonde Hokage walked in and noticed the group staring at her. Minato was there as usual, as was Jiraiya, who had been tasked with tracking down Naruto. What surprised her was the presence of Kushina, the red-headed woman who always seemed to be at a loss for what to do. She attended some of the meetings but interacted very little, despite the fact that she went on every mission that had a possible lead on Naruto. Since that night when Minato discovered her sobbing on the floor, she seemed to grow distant. They discovered that Naruto paid her a visit, that he didn't harm her, and that they spoke, but nobody could persuade her to reveal what about. Her relationship with Minato was also strained, and while the undead Cage was almost constantly out there searching for clues, she spent all of her time not on missions in Naruto's old apartment, somewhere Tsunade once asked a Hyuga what she did there, and she apparently kept rereading Naruto's books over and over. Jiraiya began when he saw that everyone was present. I double-checked those leads we had on Orochimaru's potential movements. And? Tsunade inquired. They were all dead ends or minions who didn't know anything important. What about Naruto? Minato inquired. Jiraiya said with a shake of his head. No one has seen Aim's hide or hair anywhere since he vanished. And wasn't it a shocking revelation that some of Jiraiya's spies in neighboring countries had heard of Aim refugees, identified Naruto from the stories, and went to look for him? When they arrived, they discovered a portion of the village destroyed and the bodies of several S-rank missing nin, all of whom were known to be Akatsuki. Naruto battled them using space-time ninjutsu that Minato recognized as belonging to Obito. None of them understood why he did it, but the fact that he was able to fight the entire Akatsuki at once was a wake-up call for most of them. Naruto was extremely dangerous. Speaking of Obito, Kakashi had arrived with Obito's body and, lacking Sharingan, he explained what had happened and what Naruto had told him about Obito. The lost Uchiha was buried quietly next to Rin, and the silver-haired Jonin had all but withdrawn from his ninja duties. Damn, Minato exclaimed. There's still one way, said Tsunade. How? Kushina inquired. Tsunade pointed to the book on the table, and Kushina realized what she meant and spoke. Would you like to put him in the bingo book? It would help us track him down because people tend to talk when there's money involved. It would also make him a target, Minato explained. A bigger target than the Kyuubi? Kushina grumbled. They'd had this argument several times in the previous year, and it was the main source of strain in their relationship. What they initially thought was just anger at what had happened had turned into a resentment Kushina felt for the village and, in particular, Minato. Jiraiya interrupted them before they could resume. Look, Minato, he fought the Akatsuki, he fought me, he fought you, he can take care of himself. Jiraiya continued as Minato frowned. We're out of clues. I'm doing everything I can, but if we don't do this, we'll never find him. Minato remained silent for a brief moment before responding. Fine, but make it clear that we only want information and that I'm not putting a price on his head. Of course, you say. After 3 months. It had taken a lot of effort, but according to Orochimaru, he had finally fused the chakra perfectly. They were all back in the lab, and Orochimaru was about to begin another trial. Let us get started, Orochimaru said. They observed as the chakra was infused into the test subject, observing how it moved through his chakra pathways and across his body. Kurama? Naruto inquired. The fusion appears to be perfect. I don't sense any destabilization, and it feels exactly like the old man's chakra. Good. The chakra seemed to settle after a few moments, and Orochimaru watched carefully as the subject tried to open his eyes, his grin widening when the subject's eyes took on a purple ring pattern. Incredible, he exclaimed. It sure is something, Naruto agreed, smiling. This is the Rinnegan, Sasuke explained. The subject lived for a few moments longer before his eyes melted and he died on the floor. Despite this, the atmosphere in the room was overwhelmingly positive, and Orochimaru carefully examined the man before saying anything. That was incredible. This chakra is unlike anything I've ever seen. Why did his eyes melt away? Sasuke inquired. I accelerated the Rinnegan by concentrating a large amount of 6 paths chakra in his eyes. Clearly, they couldn't handle it. No eyes can handle it like this, Kurama said. I assume the next step is to rapidly age it in order to naturally awaken the Rinnegan? Naruto inquired. Specifically, I noticed that the process takes time, and by overcharging the eyes, I forced it to completion while also putting too much strain on them. I see. Any suggestions on how to speed it up without melting our eyes? A few. I won't bore you with the details, but if I can simulate minor damage and have the body heal it, I might be able to simulate rapid aging. Just be careful, we don't want to ruin our Sharingan by aging them. Oh, don't believe me, neither do I. Naruto was about to leave when Orochimaru summoned him. By the way, Naruto-kun, did you see what came out of Konoha recently? Naruto looked at him, puzzled, and inquired. What? Your name is in the bingo book. Really? I didn't think they had the guts to do that. They're only looking for information. I doubt many people would go after your bounty, but it's there. Naruto approached the table and took up the book, flipping through it until he found his entry. Name: Naruto Uzumaki. Moniker: Golden Dawn. Rank: S rank. Age: 14. Known capabilities: Ninjutsu Master, proficient in Taijutsu, known to know but rarely use high-level Genjutsu, proficient in Fuinjutsu, large chakra reserves, powerful healing factor, transplanted Sharingan, space-time ninjutsu, Senjutsu Master, perfect Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Known weaknesses: none. Known accomplishments: fought the Akatsuki, a group of S-rank missing nin, and killed all of them by himself, killed the Yondaime Mizukage Yagura Karatachi by himself inside Kiri. Warning: do not engage under any circumstances, if spotted retreat immediately. Bounty: 500,000 Ryo Konoha, information only, bounty received if information leads to capture. The Golden Dawn? I'm guessing it's because of my chakra cloak or the Akatsuki. That makes sense, but the information here is fairly complete, not detailed, but it covers the majority of what I can do reasonably well. You should be proud, not everyone gets a bingo book entry, said Orochimaru. I mean, maybe? It's pretty cool, but they only get information. Other S-rank ninja should know that if I fought the Akatsuki by myself, approaching me is a bad idea, and anyone else stupid enough to attack me might as well be marching to their deaths. I'm more surprised they included your Jinchuriki status. I guess they decided that not having a Jinchuriki was acceptable with Namikaze there and the Edo Tensei out in the open. From what I've heard, people freaked out when that blonde idiot appeared out of nowhere, Orochimaru said. Naruto said with a shake of his head. Never mind that. I'm not leaving here until the Rinnegan is finished anyway. After 8 months. It had been 2 years since the destruction of the Akatsuki, and Naruto was worried. Zetsu had gone underground, and despite not being particularly strong in combat, the third child of Kagaya was cunning. The blonde had no idea what Zetsu was up to, which bothered him greatly. When an attack came at him, he ducked beneath Sasuke's punch and returned with one of his own. The Uchiha jumped and let the blow launch him away as he sped through hand seals. Fire style. Fantastic fireball. Naruto dodged the fireball and ran at Sasuke while being attacked by a hail of shuriken. When he reached the Uchiha, he drew back his fist, but Sasuke surprised him by stabbing him in the abdomen. When the raven-haired boy charged him with his sword and slashed him, Naruto sidestepped the blade and drew a wind-enhanced kunai to meet the next slash. Your strength has greatly improved. I didn't think you could hit that hard. Uchiha smirked and stated. You aren't the only one who has a few tricks up your sleeve. Naruto raised an eyebrow when he noticed Sasuke's blade was covered in lightning and cut through his kunai. He dodged the next strike but had to let the third one pass through him. He jumped away, and Sasuke did not follow. Excellent. Your development is astounding. I win, Sasuke smirked, and Naruto nodded in agreement. They had agreed not to use any Mangekyo abilities, and he broke that rule. Are you ready to take it up a notch? Naruto inquired after a brief break, more for Sasuke's benefit than his own. I've been looking forward to it, Sasuke said, activating their Mangekyo before 2 spectral warriors appeared around them. Susanoo, Sasuke's Susanoo, was purple, with demonic horns and a malevolent grin formed by its jagged teeth around its hood. Naruto's, on the other hand, was blue, with sharp protrusions from its shoulder all the way down to its arms, and no features visible on its face other than the ominous glowing eyes hidden behind the hood. Both warriors charged at each other, Sasuke firing chakra arrows that Naruto shot out of the air with Kamui Shuriken, and when they collided, the room shook from the force of their blows. After a few exchanges, they jumped back and both fighters sped through the same set of hand seals, the shockwaves causing cracks to appear all around them. Fire style. Majestic destroyer flame, the two exclaimed before shooting a wave of flames at each other. Both jutsu clashed and appeared to tie before Sasuke added Amaterasu's black flames to his own, overpowering Naruto and forcing him to phase through the attack, briefly dropping his Susanoo. Naruto drew his Susanoo's katana while Sasuke drew his Susanoo's saber, and they dashed at each other, clashing blades, sparks flying everywhere. Suddenly, two sets of chakra chains ensnared the two and yanked them out of their avatars, causing them to dissipate. The two were yanked upside down and met a furious Karen glaring at them. "Do you two morons want to bring the building down on us?" Naruto scratched the back of his head, while Sasuke averted his gaze, his cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry. I guess we forgot," Naruto explained. "Didn't you realize we were underground?" she yelled. "My bad?" He made an attempt. She let the two down and stormed out, muttering about battle junkie idiots after hearing Naruto speak. "Perhaps we should hold back while we're inside here. We don't want to be buried alive." Naruto noticed Sasuke squinting his eyes as he nodded. "Are your eyes tired?" "I'll be fine," Sasuke dismissed. "Just be careful not to overdo it. There's no point in fighting Itachi blind." Sure. After 3 months. The entire group had gathered at Orochimaru's request, and as soon as the last one arrived, Orochimaru began talking excitedly. "I was successful," he stated. "Do you understand the aging process?" Everyone could hear Naruto's eagerness in his voice when he asked. "I did. It's not instant, but I managed to speed it up as much as I could without harming my eyes." "How much time?" 9 months, the Snake Man chuckled. "To go from over 50 years to 9 months, Karen exclaimed. She had been a part of the project but her medical skill was nowhere near that of Orochimaru and her role had been relatively minor. "I knew I chose the right scientist," Naruto said, his eyes twinkling with delight. "All that's left now is to find the perfect vessel for it," Orochimaru said. "Did you try it on the Zetsu body, as I suggested?" Naruto inquired. "I did, and it took a few days to adjust, but there were no side effects." Of course, the body was nothing more than a mass of Zetsu cells, so no dojutsu manifested. It's already amazing that it managed to adapt on its own. Naruto laughed and looked around the room before saying anything. "We have accomplished something here that no one has ever done except Madara Uchiha, congratulations." When they heard what Naruto said, everyone in their small group smiled. "So, what are we going to do now?" "Let's get started." Karen turned to Naruto and asked as they all moved to the lab and Orochimaru began preparing for the process. "Are you certain about this?" He smiled confidently at her and said. "I'll be fine. I've got Kurama watching over me all the time." Naruto took a deep breath and said as he stepped into the chamber designed to infuse the 6 paths chakra into him and grant him the Rinnegan. "I wish you luck." He nodded to Orochimaru, and the chamber closed around him. The others watched as the 6 paths chakra was infused into the blonde, and they heard him grunt in pain before silence fell. "Is it finished?" Karen inquired. Naruto stepped out of the chamber with a hiss, the wounds on his torso from the injection closing quickly. Naruto let out a breath, and Orochimaru asked, How do you feel? Naruto spoke with a smile. Fantastic. After that, he passed out. After 9 months. When Naruto awoke, he was told that the chakra had temporarily overwhelmed him while it acclimated to his body, and that he shouldn't use chakra until the process was finished. It took a while due to his large reserves, but he was finally up and running after a week. Kurama kept an eye on Naruto's chakra network, and according to them, the process was going well. Unfortunately, this meant that Naruto should avoid straining himself, and thus could only do basic sparring with Sasuke. Speaking of the Uchiha, he had improved dramatically in the last few years, and he could now match Naruto in base, and thanks to his Mangekyo's careful training, he could use all of its abilities with high levels of proficiency, even bringing his Susanoo to the armored stage with relatively little damage to his eyesight. In the following months, Naruto spent the majority of his time with either Karen or Sasuke, though Orochimaru would occasionally spend some time talking to him about Naruto's skills and knowledge. He enjoyed it, but he knew that as soon as the Rinnegan manifested, he would have to move on the tailed beasts, and with Zetsu around, he knew it wouldn't be as easy as he hoped. Time seemed to drag on until Naruto summoned the team to reveal his new eyes after 9 months. They had all gathered, and Naruto simply channeled chakra into his eyes, transforming them into purple ringed forms before gazing at the gathered. "It really is incredible," Orochimaru said. "It's so lovely," Karen exclaimed. "So this is the Sharingan's final evolution," Sasuke explained. Before speaking, Naruto smirked and returned his gaze to his basic Sharingan. It's difficult to explain, but the power I feel emanating from these eyes is something entirely different." "How so?" inquired Orochimaru. "It's as if I've suddenly realized how much I know about the world and chakra. Things I've never imagined before now seem so simple." "I see," Orochimaru said, pleased with himself. "Are you going to wake up yours right now?" Naruto inquired. "No, I still have some life left in this body, and I intend to move to the Zetsu one only after its own Rinnegan awakens," Orochimaru explained. Naruto nodded and turned to Karen, saying, "I now understand your fascination with chakras." "You do?" she inquired, perplexed. "With the Sharingan, I could see chakra, but only now can I appreciate its beauty. I can see so much just by looking at your chakra." Before he said anything, Karen blushed and Naruto chuckled. "Anyway, now that the Rinnegan has been awakened, we'll proceed." "So, what's the next step?" "You never informed us," Sasuke inquired. "We will reunite the tailed beasts." "Can you reunite them?" Karen inquired. They could hear the excitement in Naruto's voice as he chuckled. "It's finally time for me to get my hands on the Gedo Mazo." Several minutes later, they all moved to one of the hideout's larger rooms, and Naruto handed Karen 2 large scrolls to hold before moving to the center of the room, his eyes changing into the Rinnegan, and he moved through hand seals before slamming his hand on the ground and shouting. Summoning. Outer Path Demonic Statue. A massive cloud of smoke engulfed the area, revealing a monstrosity, a massive, earthen-colored humanoid entity with a mummified appearance, a body shaped like a robe, and several spike-like protrusions on its back. The statue's wrists and ankles were shackled, and it bit down on a scroll held in place by 2 ropes extending from beneath its blindfold on either side of its head. The aura it seemed to produce was enough to frighten both Karen and Sasuke. "This is the Gedo Mazo," Naruto explained as he returned to the group. "Wait, what the hell is that?" Karen was completely creeped out by it. "I intend to usurp the shell of an old god." "How are we going to use that?" Sasuke inquired. Naruto smiled and took one of Karen's scrolls, unrolled it, and said, "I'm sure you remember our Chunin exam buddy." Naruto took the form of Gaara from the scroll, looking pale and ragged but very much alive, and placed him in front of the statue, creating a clone that Kurama quickly took over. "Let's do it," Naruto said, and Kurama nodded before moving through the same set of hand seals and saying, "Phantom Dragon's 9 consuming seals sealing technique." The mouth of the statue opened slightly, and several dragons made of chakra flew towards the redhead, who began grunting in pain as Naruto spoke. "After we gather the Biju and seal them inside the Geto Mazo, I will become its Jinchuriki and finally achieve my goals." They all nodded, and Naruto smiled. He was so close he could taste it. His goal was within reach after all these years, and he was going to pursue it with everything he had. His apotheosis was near. Naruto and Kurama gathered the group again after sealing both Shukaku and Isobu. It was time to move, and neither wanted to waste any more time. Naruto began as everyone gathered in what had become their meeting room. "Now that we've sealed the deal on the Biju, it's time to go after the rest. Do you know where they are?" Sasuke inquired. "The majority of them, yes. And what about the ones you don't?" Naruto said with a shrug. "There's only one, and I'll send some Sage Mode shadow clones to find them." "Where do you want to go first, Naruto-kun?" Orochimaru inquired. "Taki, they're just a small village with a bad reputation for Jinchuriki. Hopefully, I'll slip in and out unnoticed. What's the point of being stealthy?" Karen wondered. "Taki doesn't have anyone who can fight you. They have no idea I'm after the Biju, and I'd prefer not to have the 5 great nations breathing down our necks just yet." Karen nodded, and Naruto noticed Sasuke's thoughtful expression. "Is there something wrong, Sasuke?" Naruto inquired. He paused for a moment before asking, "Would you mind keeping an eye out for Itachi while you're out there?" "I'm prepared to face him." "Sure," Naruto said, nodding. "I'll keep an eye out for him." "Thank you," Sasuke replied. Naruto said as he looked around the table. "All right, that's decided. Anyone want to come along?" "I'd rather stay because I still need to finish up my new body," Orochimaru said. "I'll also stay because I want to make sure I'm as strong as possible when I fight Itachi," Sasuke explained. "Sure. I've been looking forward to getting out of this hideout for quite some time," Karen admitted. Naruto said with a smile. "Then let's get moving." To Kigakure. Naruto and Karen emerged from Kamui in one of the village's more remote areas, both dressed in the clothes they had acquired over the years. Naruto wore an orange hooded orange jacket with black flame designs on the sleeves and the hood that he kept off, black pants, and black shinobi sandals, and no headband. Karen, on the other hand, wore a lavender uniform that exposed her navel, short black shorts, and long black thigh-high stockings with black sandals, red glasses, and no headband. As the two walked through the village, Naruto chuckled as Karen took in the sights, particularly the large tree in the center of the village. He had to admit that the village was lovely. The buildings were light in color, and the presence of lush trees all around gave it an emerald-like glow. The main attraction, however, was the massive waterfall beneath which the village was built. There were seals to keep the noise from disturbing the residents, but the sight of it was breathtaking. They moved towards where Kurama felt Chome and soon found a small house on the outskirts of the village, which appeared to be poorly maintained but still livable, and Naruto spotted the small training ground in the back. Naruto knocked on the door, and a teenage girl emerged, a petite, androgynous, tan-skinned kunoichi with an orange clip in her short, layered mint green hair that matched her eye color, which was also orange. Her ninja costume included a short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath, long white armlets, and fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over it, as well as a forehead protector worn on her right arm. "Who are you?" she inquired. "Are you Fu?" she said, narrowing her eyes at him. "Look, No matter what kind of bet you made with your friends, I'm not going out with you just so you can say you screwed the freak girl. Excuse me? Naruto asked, surprised. You cretins are all the same, just leave me alone. She yelled. She tried to slam the door shut, but Naruto held it open for her. She glared at him, but he just stared at her in silence for a moment before turning to Karen, who was also shocked and disgusted, and saying, "And I'm the bad guy when I don't want to save these people." Yeah, Karen agreed. If you ask me, they don't seem to deserve anything like that. Naruto then returned his attention to the still staring Fu and said, "Look, you've got it backwards. I'm not sure what kind of disgusting bastard would do something like that, but I'm not one of them, and that's not why I'm here." "What brings you here?" Fu inquired. "I need you to accompany me." "And why would I come with you, and who the hell are you?" She inquired. He started, but was cut off by a familiar voice. Naruto. He immediately recognized it and thought, "How come I didn't see them coming, Kurama?" "It's more enjoyable this way," Kurama said. "What happened to stealth, Furball?" "Stealth is tedious. This is better." Naruto sighed, knowing that when Kurama was bored, they did whatever they wanted, and turned to see a familiar pink-haired girl. "It's been a while, Sakura." He mumbled as he noticed the pink-haired girl's teammates, the remaining rookie 9 inches and their sensei minus Kakashi. "Well, that's the end of my plan." "Was that you?" Sakura inquired. "Yes, Sakura, it's I, Naruto, your old teammate," he said exaggeratedly, his annoyance obvious. She shook her head, surprised, and said, "What the hell happened? You and Sasuke defected the village. I thought you died, but then I discovered you set the Kyuubi loose on Konoha and fled," he said, rolling his eyes. "Look, Sakura, I'd love to go over all of my motivations with you, but I have better things to do, so if you could please run off, that would be fantastic." He ignored her and moved through the crowd until he saw Hinata, then smiled and said, "I'm glad to hear you're okay, Hinata. I was worried that my departure would have an impact on you." She took a step back, her face flushed with mixed emotions. Kurenai, seeing this, stepped in front of her and said, "You have a lot of guts to say that." "Not really, she's a nice girl, and just because I don't reciprocate her feelings doesn't mean I have to be a jerk to her," Naruto shrugged. Kurenai kept staring at him, but he ignored her. He moved his gaze past the rest of the group, noticing emotion in Ino's eyes, but he ignored them and returned his gaze to Fu, who was now warily watching both groups. "As I previously stated, I need you to accompany me." "What do you want with me?" she inquired. He said as he released a flash of tailed beast chakra. "I'm similar to you." She was taken aback, but before she could respond, Naruto turned around and used a shuriken to shoot one of Shino's bugs into the air, glaring at him and spat. "This is your only warning. Those things are disgusting, and if you do it again, I will torch both them and you." The Aburame did not respond, so he returned to Fu, who took a step back and said reluctantly, "I'm not leaving here." "We're bringing you back, Naruto," Sakura exclaimed. He laughed as he said to her, "Really? Because I fought the Akatsuki, and unless all of you suddenly became S rank while I wasn't looking, there's nothing you can do to me." "Sakura, be smart," Shikamaru cautioned, unusually tense. "We can't fight him, so let's retreat." When Sakura didn't move, Naruto sighed in frustration and asked Karen, "Would you rather have the Jinchuriki or these idiots?" "I'll take the Jinchuriki, I've been meaning to practice with my chains," Karen smirked. "Sure. Just keep in mind that we need her alive." Karen nodded, and Naruto moved to stand in front of the group, amusedly looking at them and saying, "I meant it, you know? Just run away, and I won't chase you down. I didn't come here to fight you. There's no way we're backing down," exclaimed Kiba. He gave him a brief glance before turning to Kurenai and saying, "Aren't you going to say something? You know you're not the right person for me." He felt something in the back of his mind before he laughed as she glared at him. "Genjutsu? If Itachi Uchiha can't put me in a genjutsu, you certainly won't." They took that as a sign to start, and both Kiba and Choji rushed over to him. He rolled his eyes and just stared at Choji. When the Akamichi made the mistake of looking Naruto in the eyes, his hand expanded and he punched the unwary Kiba. "He's under genjutsu," Kurenai immediately recognized. Choji dashed towards Kiba before being caught by Shikamaru's shadow possession. After breaking the genjutsu, Kiba dashed back towards Naruto, this time making sure not to look him in the eyes. Fang against fang. Kiba spun quickly and flew towards Naruto when a vortex appeared in front of him and swallowed him whole, followed by another next to Akamaru, who had been waiting for an opportunity to capitalize on his partner's attack. Kiba flew through the vortex and collided with Akamaru, sending both of them flying away. When Hinata snapped out of her trance and charged him, Asuma trailed behind with his trench knives. Naruto let their attacks pass through him before kicking Asuma away and grabbing Hinata by the neck. He slammed her to the ground before tossing her into the air, sending her flying towards Choji. When he saw Ino collapse and felt an impact on his conscience, he smiled at her teammates. That was a terrible idea. Shikamaru realized what he was saying a moment later and yelled, "It's the Kyuubi. What is this?" Kurama asked from the mindscape as Ino appeared. They smacked her with the full force of their killing intent, knocking Ino to the ground. When she looked up, she saw the massive towering form of the Kyuubi staring down at her, its teeth sharp and its grin bloody. She woke up in her body and immediately puked after canceling the jutsu at the last moment before a claw could run her through. Sakura rushed Naruto, and he decided to match her punch, which surprised him with its strength. He chuckled and said, "You got Tsunade to train you? That's impressive. Why are you doing this, Naruto?" she yelled. He smiled and said as he let the second blow pass through him before kicking her away, "Why not? It's entertaining. Fun," exclaimed Kurenai. "Do you know how many people you killed?" "You mistook me for someone who cares," he said, shaking his head. Kurenai screamed at him, but he dodged her blows and grabbed her by the neck before saying anything. "Send the message to Konoha. Leave me alone, and I'll return the favor. Don't, and... well, you'll find out." He looked her in the eyes, and she let out an agonizing scream before collapsing and shaking on the ground. "Kurenai-sensei!" Kiba yelled as he approached Naruto once more. Naruto said with a shake of his head, "You know, I killed the last guy who kept repeating the same strategy and expecting different results." He kicked Kurenai's body towards Kiba, forcing him to abort his attack and capture his sensei. When he looked down and saw a small line of insects trying to sneak up on him, he said to Shino, "I forewarned you." Shino jumped back to avoid Naruto's jutsu, but she was too slow and had to create an insect shield to protect herself. Fire style. Fantastic fireball. It didn't help that the fireball burned through his shield before striking him, leaving him with severe burns and unconscious. Ino regained his composure and hurled some shuriken at him. He didn't even have to dodge as a kunai fell from the sky and blew them away. He turned towards Karen and saw her hurling explosives at the flying Fu. "I'm extremely proud of her," he said. "Of course you would be, you explosion maniac," Kurama remarked sarcastically. What can I say, I did a good job teaching her, and she improved even more on her own. The group attempted to capitalize on the brief distraction by Asuma throwing one of his knives at Naruto, who caught it but a shadow from it connected with his own. Shadow possession is finished, Shikamaru said. Oh really? Naruto asked before being briefly enveloped in a golden glow, the brightness cutting off the shadow and breaking Shikamaru's jutsu. He then infused Asuma's knife with wind chakra and threw it back at the man, saying, I believe this is yours. When Asuma touched the knife, a nearly invisible chakra thread sent a large amount of lightning chakra, knocking him unconscious. Your senseis are down, Shino is down, Ino can barely move, and even Choji has taken damage, Naruto said. A large explosion in the air knocked Fu down before they could respond. The chakra cloak vanished as soon as she hit the ground, and the chains dragged her to Karen, who lifted her into the air and said, I'll give her that much, she was tough. Before he said anything, Naruto gave her a nod of approval. That's it. We can go now. As the Konoha ninja retreated, he began to walk towards Karen but stopped midway and looked towards the village. What's the matter? Karen inquired. Would you like to get a souvenir? He smirked. After 2 days, Naruto and Karen had successfully apprehended Fu and even grabbed a bottle of Taki's famous hero water on their way out, which delighted Orochimaru. They then moved to seal Chome into the Gedo Mazo, at least according to the clone's memories as it continued its search for Seiken and its Jinchuriki Utakata. The Naruto clone was using Sage Mode to track down the Kiri missing Nin and had created a slew of its own clones to broaden the search area. During that search, he noticed a familiar signature and moved towards it.
He moved quickly through the trees and appeared in a clearing near Itachi Uchiha, who turned to Naruto and said,
What can I do for you, Naruto-kun? Naruto noticed Itachi's trepidation in his movements, but he ignored it as he spoke. I've received a message from Sasuke, and he says he's ready to fight you. Is that correct? That's good because I'm running out of time. Your illness, Naruto explained. Yes, I'm relieved that he'll be able to avenge the clan before it kills me. Naruto stared at him for a moment before speaking. He is aware about the massacre. Itachi was distraught. Yes, and it makes no difference. He claims you betrayed the clan and that he will never forgive you, even if it was to protect him. I see. I understand why you did it. I don't agree with you, but I understand. Do you think I made the right decision? Itachi asked, his voice thin. Betraying your family is never a good idea, Itachi. I wished there was another way, but I didn't want Sasuke to grow up in war. I understand. I would die 1,000 times before causing harm to my sister. You don't have a sister, Itachi wondered. Naruto said with a bitter chuckle. Never mind that. The point is that I understand why you did it. However, that does not mean I would have done the same. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, Itachi said dryly. Itachi was surprised by the amount of sympathy and bitterness in Naruto's laughter. It isn't it? They were silent for a few moments before Itachi spoke. Tell Sasuke to meet me in 1 week at the Uchiha hideout in the Land of Fire. Naruto said with a nod. Well, Itachi, this is my farewell, and I can't say it's been a pleasure to meet you. Keep an eye on Sasuke and let him keep an eye on you, okay? Don't try to do everything yourself like I did. I'm sure you'll see that Sasuke is strong, but I will. I'm looking forward to it, Itachi said, his face sad. Bye, Itachi. Naruto dashed off into the trees, leaving Itachi to ponder in the clearing. After 2 days, Shikamaru walked into the Hokage's office to deliver his report. The majority of the team was in the hospital, and he had been chosen to report from the rest. It was supposed to be a simple mission. A missing nin from Konoha had been causing problems near Taki, and Konoha had sent a force to deal with it, an overkill force as well, but it was unknown if there were other ninjas, so it was decided to be cautious. They found the missing nin and easily defeated him and the 2 other ninjas with him. They delivered the news to Taki, and they were on their last day in the village before returning to Konoha when they ran into Naruto. Shikamaru knocked on the door and was allowed to enter after a few moments. Inside, he saw the Hokage and Jiraiya. Tsunade looked at him and realized something was wrong. She put down the paper she was reading and inquired, "What happened, Shikamaru?" "The mission was successful, Hokage-sama, but when we were about to return, we ran into problems." "What kind of issues?" the blonde Hokage inquired. "In Taki, we ran into Naruto." Shikamaru noticed a difference in the two. "What on earth was he doing there?" "I'm not sure, but when we saw him, he was with that red-headed girl, and they were talking with a green-haired girl, who Naruto said was a Jinchuriki, and he wanted her to come with him." "What happened after that?" "We fought because Sakura insisted on engaging him, and the Jinchuriki also refused to accompany him, and the redhead fought her." "Naruto ripped us apart with ease, half of the team is in the hospital, and we didn't even manage to scratch him." "You should not have married him," Tsunade stated firmly. "I understand, Hokage-sama, but Sakura refused to budge, and we couldn't let her fight Naruto alone," Tsunade said with a sigh. "Sakura has always been stubborn. I'll talk to her." Shikamaru nodded and went on. "The redhead defeated the Jinchuriki and they kidnapped her." "What could he possibly want from a Jinchuriki?" Tsunade murmured something, then turned to Shikamaru and said, "Have there been any casualties?" "No," Shikamaru said, shaking his head. "He didn't seem to want to kill us. He even tried to persuade us to leave without a fight several times." "Does that cover it?" "Hokage-sama, yes." "Then you're fired," Tsunade stated. She turned to Jiraiya after Shikamaru had gone. "Do you know why he wants a Jinchuriki?" "Perhaps I had a spy in the Akatsuki before it was destroyed. They wanted the tailed beasts to build a weapon. Perhaps Naruto wants the same?" "That does not appear to be him, but it is possible." "At least now we have a lead on him, even if we have to inform Minato and Kushina," Jiraiya said. "True, but I'm concerned about what he's up to," Tsunade said. "So am I." After 5 days. When they returned from Taki, Naruto informed Sasuke about Itachi and went to seal Chome into the Gedo Mazo. He then had to wait for his clones to report the location of Utakata, so he spent his time assisting Sasuke in preparing for his battle with Itachi. After 5 days, he finally knew where the runaway Kiri Jinchuriki was. He was worried that Utakata would return to Kiri and that he would have to fight Mei to get him, but the Jinchuriki had continued to roam the land, and Naruto discovered him in a forest a few miles past the border of the Fire Country. He informed them of his departure but asked Karen to accompany Sasuke instead, claiming that the Uchiha might require medical attention after the battle. Sasuke grumbled at first but eventually agreed, and while Naruto pursued Saiken and Utakata, Sasuke and Karen went to the Uchiha hideout to find Itachi. The two made their way through the trees and soon arrived at the former base of the Uchiha clan, which was built into a terraced mountain with vast forestry growing on each level, as well as 2 towers on either side of the mountain that connected directly to it. Inside, there was one large meeting hall with the Uchiha symbol framing the doorway on either side, and at the front of the room, elevated above the rest of the room by a platform, was a stone throne. Itachi sat on the throne, looking over at the two with his Sharingan. "Itachi," Sasuke yelled, his Sharingan bursting into life. "Good day, little brother," Itachi said. "You betrayed our family, Itachi." I've been told you know why. It doesn't matter. What you did doesn't change, Sasuke said, glaring at Itachi. I guess not, Itachi replied, his voice hollow. Karen, wait outside, Sasuke said, turning to Itachi and saying, I've come to exact Uchiha vengeance on you, traitor. Then come, foolish little brother, and demonstrate the power of your eyes to me. Itachi pointed his finger at Sasuke and said, shrugging off the genjutsu. That's not going to work on me because I have the same eyes as you. Sasuke threw a shuriken at Itachi, who moved to do the same, but Sasuke sped through hand seals and said just as they were about to collide. Shuriken Shadow Duplicate. The shuriken multiplied instantly, and Itachi jumped out of the throne to avoid the ones that made it through, moving through his own set of hand seals, but Sasuke did the same, and both brothers ended up performing the same jutsu. Fire Style. Fantastic Fireball. When the two fireballs collided and created an explosion, Sasuke drew his blade and charged at Itachi. The elder Uchiha pulled out a kunai and met his younger sibling in the middle of the room, their blades clashing. Sasuke's blade was suddenly covered in lightning and cut through Itachi's kunai, but Itachi managed to avoid the follow-up strike, and Sasuke noticed his eyes shift into his Mangekyo Sharingan, which he activated just in time to block a Tsukuyomi and ran at him again. Itachi sped through hand seals and spat a fire stream at Sasuke, who dodged by jumping and sticking to the ceiling. He came down at Itachi with a quick and the elder Uchiha tried to block only to be sent back by the force of the blow. Sasuke took advantage of the situation by rushing through hand seals and saying, Chidori Lightning Style. Itachi saw this coming and grabbed Sasuke's arm and stopped him. Seeing Sasuke's smirk set off warning bells in his head, and all he had time to do was move his head to the side to avoid the lightning spear coming from Sasuke's Chidori, but he still took a cut to the side of the head. Itachi punched Sasuke in the gut and kicked him away, then threw a wave of shuriken at him, but he vanished, replaced by a log, and the real Sasuke appeared from behind Itachi, his blade poised to pierce his heart. Itachi dodged and moved quickly through hand seals before saying anything. Dragon's Breath Fire Style. The flamethrower hit Sasuke square in the face and he took a few burns before extinguishing them. He noticed Itachi watching him and glared at him before creating two clones, and all three ran at Itachi, Chidori in their hands. Itachi was prepared to avoid them, but the two clones jumped to the ceiling and their bodies flickered at him, their Chidori blinding him. He managed to avoid them, but the brief loss of visibility cost him a deep cut from the barely avoided Chidori of the original Sasuke. He took a step back and looked at Sasuke with his Mangekyo before unleashing black flames, which Sasuke anticipated and countered with his own, both brothers saying at the same time, Amaterasu. The flames clashed and spread throughout the hideout until Sasuke jumped through the flames, his Susanoo ribcage protecting him, and rushed at Itachi, punching him in the gut before kicking him through the ceiling. Sasuke followed Itachi to the hideout's roof and stood across him, the fated battle between brothers, the ancient Uchiha hideout burning around them. You've grown, little brother, but do you think you're better than me? I will kill you, Itachi, for all the crimes you have committed against the Uchiha. How do you intend to do that? Itachi recognized the motion and looked up to see the raging storm clouds created by their battle as Sasuke smirked and raised his hand to the air. It's over, traitor, now go away with the thunderclap. As he lowered his hand, Sasuke yelled, Kirin Lightning Style. A massive dragon made of pure lightning roared as it emerged from the clouds and slammed into the ground at impossible speeds, destroying the hideout and nearly destroying the mountain around it. Sasuke smiled and shouted as his own Susanoo covered him and advanced to its armored form after the smoke cleared. Itachi, this is it. The grand finale. I'm going to murder you. Both avatars charged at each other, Sasuke wielding his saber and Itachi wielding the Totsuka blade and Yata mirror. Sasuke's blade became engulfed in Amaterasu's flames as he swung it at Itachi. The elder Uchiha blocked with the mirror before moving to attack with his blade, but Sasuke quickly parried and took advantage of the close-quarters situation by forcing the Yata mirror to the side before unleashing Amaterasu flames on Itachi. Itachi saw this coming and used Amaterasu to block the attack. A sea of black flames appeared between the two fighters, forcing them apart. As Sasuke jumped back, he created Amaterasu arrows and fired them at Itachi. Yusaka Magatama! Itachi exclaimed as he fired the arrows into the air with the Magatama beads. One of them made it past and forced Itachi to use the Yata mirror to block. Sasuke came running back and brought his blade down with both of his Susanoo's hands, forcing Itachi to also use both of his to block, and Sasuke suddenly stepped back as they struggled. This caused Itachi to lose his balance for a brief moment, allowing Sasuke to coat his Susanoo's hand in lightning and pierce straight through Itachi's own Susanoo. The strain of keeping the Susanoo active proved too much for both brothers, and the two avatars collapsed. They both collapsed on the ground, gasping for air, and Itachi stumbled drunkenly towards Sasuke. "This is it," Itachi declared. "It's all over." "It is," Sasuke replied. "Bye, Itachi."
Sasuke's eyes, which had nearly lost all vision by this point, transformed one last time into the Mangekyo, and the Amaterasu flames behind Itachi shifted as Sasuke said,
"Kagatsuchi." The flames transformed into a single black arrow that shot from behind and burned a hole straight through Itachi's chest. He collapsed instantly, dead, and Sasuke exhaled. He slowly stood up and walked towards Itachi's body, kneeling next to it for a moment before removing both of Itachi's eyes and storing them. He then burned his once-body brothers and looked up at the sky, feeling his cheeks wet as he took a deep breath and exhaled it. In search of Karen, he moved slowly towards the entrance of the hideout. When he arrived, he was surprised to see Karen standing on the trees a little further, clearly injured and fighting a full platoon of masked shinobi, one of whom turned to him and saw the attack but was too slow due to the fight he had just taken part in, and Karen had to jump in front of him to shield him. The poison quickly took over her, and due to her injuries, she collapsed there. Sasuke saw this, and his mind quickly reached an unfavorable conclusion: he couldn't fight them as they were. He was too injured to even ensure his own safety, let alone hers. He ran through the trees with gritted teeth, leaving Karen behind and only one thought in his head. "Hold on, I'm going to get help." The following day, Naruto had easily captured Utakata and was preparing to extract and seal Saiken when Sasuke stumbled into the base, clearly exhausted. He didn't have time to ask any questions when Sasuke confirmed his fear when he noticed Karen's absence. They kidnapped Karen Naruto. He was frozen for a split second before snapping out of it and speaking, his voice cold. "Who?" "They were wearing masks," Sasuke explained. "They didn't speak, and the masks had no pattern or design." "Danzo," Naruto growled, his rage palpable. He spat towards Orochimaru. "Get some healing for Sasuke and perform the eye swap surgery. Don't you fucking dare try anything funny." Orochimaru nodded solemnly before speaking. "If Root took her, she's most likely in one of their underground bases." Naruto didn't respond. Instead, he was swallowed up by Kamui and vanished. He could feel his heart tighten with worry. His anger was almost too much for him. He knew he should have dealt with Danzo by now, that the old Warhawk would pull something and that he preferred trickery and underhanded tactics over brute force. Naruto realized he had been arrogant in believing that because he was more powerful than Danzo, the old man couldn't do anything to him, that he was untouchable, and he was paying the price now, unable to stop thinking about what Danzo could be doing to Karen, and it was all his fault. Karen was strong. He knew she could take care of herself, but she wasn't prepared to fight a platoon of Jonin-level Root Anbu. He knew she could hold on until he arrived, but the fact that she had to hold on scared him half to death and made his blood boil with rage. His mind was clear. the rage sharpening his single-minded focus and directing it directly to a single goal: get Karen back. He didn't care about anything else right now. Naruto emerged from Kamui just outside Konoha, feeling the space-time lock around the village, and it would have amused him in another time that they went to such lengths to prevent him from sneaking inside. Now? It was never an option to remain hidden. He passed by the gates and registered the shouting in the back of his mind. People began running, and not long after, a squad of Anbu surrounded him. They said something, but he had no time for them. His Susanoo's aura effortlessly blocked all the jutsu they fired at him. He didn't fight back. They didn't matter. Karen did, and he wouldn't let anything stand in his way of regaining her. He continued walking, and one of them, a purple-haired woman with a sword from what he could see of her, attempted to attack him in close quarters. A spectral hand appeared out of nowhere and backhanded her while she was still mid-jump, sending her flying through several buildings until one managed to stop her momentum, at which point it promptly collapsed on top of her. He had placed a tracking seal in both Karen and Sasuke, just in case, he had told himself, better to be safe than sorry, and he used it to locate Karen as soon as he was out of Kamui. The seal didn't have unlimited range, but it did have enough for him to find her now. Civilians fled and ninja surrounded him as he walked through the village. After the first few, they realized that getting too close was a bad idea and decided to just bomb him with jutsu from a safe distance. He ignored them, his mind preoccupied and his hearing deafened by the incredibly loud whispers of every conversation he'd ever had with her. When he was surrounded by the Hokage and the others and was nearly above where he felt her seal, he was forced out of his rage-fueled haze when Tsunade spoke. "Naruto, you're surrounded. Stand down and..." He abruptly cut her off with an angry growl. "Danzo kidnapped Tsunade. He kidnapped Karen, and I came here to get her back. Please, Naruto, let's talk about..." Minato began, but Naruto spat. "There's nothing to say. He took her, and I want her back right now. I'll help you find her, just calm down," and Kushina offered, but Naruto refused. "Calm down? Calm down. No. I was perfectly content to leave you alone. Heck, I went out of my way to leave you alone so I could prove a fucking point. But if he did anything to her, all bets are off and I will personally reduce your entire miserable fucking village and every bastard who lives in it to ash." His Susanoo suddenly manifested completely around him, and just as Tsunade was about to attack, he dug both of the Susanoo's hands into the ground and ripped a hole in it, beneath which a maze of tunnels could be seen, and Naruto jumped inside before anyone could say anything. He landed in one of the tunnels and immediately turned towards Karen's seal, punching his way through the walls until he burst through the final one, revealing a large chamber with a throne in the center. Danzo sat on the throne, surrounded by his root Anbu, and just beside him on a table lying down was Karen, his heart nearly stopping before he noticed she was breathing, which didn't help when he noticed she was wearing a hospital gown and had signs of surgery in her chest. "The Kyuubi has returned," Danzo explained. "What the fuck did you do to her?" screamed Naruto as he began to approach Danzo when one of his men thrust a blade into Karen's throat. "Not so fast," Danzo replied. "She is now my hostage, and if you want to see her safe, you must do exactly what I say. If you hurt her..." Naruto growled menacingly. "You could have avoided all of this if you had simply remained loyal to Konoha." "I'm not here to play your games, Danzo. Either return her right away or I'll tear your precious village apart myself." "You will not do such a thing. You will do as I command or she will perish." When the following group arrived, they saw what was going on and Jiraiya said, "So you never disbanded Root, Danzo, because Sarutobi-sensei gave you an order." Hiruzen was a fool. If he had given me the Kyuubi, it could have been a weapon for the village, but he was an emotional fool, and the beast deserted. "Naruto is not the Kyuubi, he is..." Minato began, but Naruto interrupted him. "Namikaze, shut up, I don't have time for you right now. Naruto then turned towards Danzo and said, I'm not going to warn you again. Give her back or else. You don't seem to understand your current situation, Danzo said. Very well. The Anbu holding the blade at Karen's throat began to move it, and Naruto screamed as it drew blood. Stop. Do you get it now? Danzo inquired. Naruto stared at him but did not respond. Danzo, seeing this, turned to the remaining group and said, This is a good opportunity. The Kyuubi traitor killed the Hokage and her group before I was able to control him. The daimyo will have no choice but to make me Hokage without you. You're insane. This is high treason, said Tsunade. Danzo ignored her and turned to Naruto, saying, Kill them or the girl will perish. Just as Danzo was about to order the Anbu to kill Karen, Naruto dashed towards the group and clashed fists with Tsunade, kicking her away and moving towards Kushina. In an instant, their eyes met, and with a quick genjutsu, he managed to grab her and throw her to the back of the room. He began trading blows with Minato and Jiraiya, shielding himself from most of the blows with his Susanoo aura, and just as another kick came towards him, he saw Kushina, her chakra chains piercing straight through the Anbu's back. He let the kick hit him and used it as an impulse to dash towards Karen. When he arrived, he saw that she was a shambles. She didn't have any critical injuries, but she had many minor ones, and the signs of surgery were much more visible from this distance. He saw Danzo's Anbu approaching but formed Kurama's head to protect them. He wanted to use the Naraka path to heal her but didn't know what the surgery did and didn't want to risk it. Outside the barrier, the group easily finished off Danzo's root Anbu. Tsunade and Jiraiya moved towards Danzo, while Minato and Kushina moved towards Naruto, he said as he dismissed the barrier. I don't know what he did to her, but he did something, and I can't risk healing her without knowing what it was. Tsunade-sama, please just come with us, Kushina begged. He paused for a moment before looking at Karen, sighed, and said, I'm trusting you for her sake. Don't make me regret it. Kushina said with a soft smile. Of course not, you say. He said, looking her in the eyes. I'm not sure I could have saved her if it hadn't been for you, thank you. She's an Uzumaki too, she's family, and I'm not abandoning her, she smiled, as Danzo appeared behind them. One of the Sharingan in his arm closed, he looked at them, held up a hand seal, and said, I put a kill switch in her heart. Get me out of here or I'll activate it, and not even Tsunade will be able to save her. Naruto looked down at the incision in her chest. He wasn't a doctor, but he could tell it was just above the heart, which, combined with his emotional sense, told him Danzo was telling the truth. You'd never dare, Naruto snarled. I'm not going to warn you again. Get me out of here before her heart explodes. Naruto dashed towards Danzo, intent on killing him before he could do anything else to Karen. In his first move, he severed his arm, removing the Sharingan implanted in it. He was about to pierce Danzo's head with a Chidori, removing his last Sharingan in his life, when Danzo activated the seal. For a brief moment, all was silent until he heard a chakra discharge and the sound of Karen's heart bursting inside her chest, instantly killing her. He couldn't believe it, he couldn't think, he couldn't breathe, all he could do was stare at the corpse of the woman he loved. A moment later he was holding her, his hand glowing golden as he tried to keep her alive with Kurama's chakra, his mind refusing to accept what was before him. He remembered the time he spent with her, all the little moments they shared, how she accepted him even after he told her about his reincarnation status, his laugh, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about something she was fascinated by. She couldn't, this wasn't supposed to happen, she had survived in canon, it was because of the changes, it was all his fault, he was to blame for the death of the girl he loved, No. He couldn't accept it. There had to be something he could do. He was going to be a god, and he wasn't going to let death take her. He would not accept that a world where she was dead could exist. He had already decided that his place was beside her. He was Naruto Uzumaki, a god in the making, and he refused to let anyone, or anything, but himself decide where his place was. He was in charge, and if he said she wouldn't die, and nothing else could exist in his presence that said otherwise. All of the suffocating pressure he was feeling vanished. He saw as the world froze. Everything seemed to be seen through blue lenses, and in the reflection on a shard of glass he saw how he had subconsciously activated his Rinnegan. He noticed that it was blue before the world around him began to turn back. He witnessed how a ghost of himself dismembered Danzo, how the injuries he had inflicted on Danzo seemed to undo themselves, how the Kurama head barrier reformed, and how the root Anbu seemed to resurrect. Soon after, he found himself staring as his ghost prepared to launch himself towards Karen and the root Anbu was run through by Kushina's chakra chains. He felt the process come to a halt and he understood. The knowledge appeared in his brain, his Rinnegan teaching him how to wield this new unique power. Rewind time. When time resumed, he used the same kick to launch himself towards Karen, and as soon as he was beside her, he created several shadow clones and dashed back towards Tsunade, a golden chakra hand pulling Kushina along. As the clones dismantled the root Anbu, he dropped in the middle of the group and turned to Tsunade, ignoring how they became defensive and pleading. He put a kill switch in her heart. Please save her. Tsunade was taken aback for a moment before she recognized the genuine desperation in his tone and went into medic mode, kneeling and working as Naruto turned to Kushina. I'm not very good with seals. Please assist me in disabling the kill switch. She felt something in her heart when she saw her son pleading for the life of the girl he loved, so she nodded and kneeled beside Tsunade. Jiraiya muttered in awe and recognition, but Naruto ignored him and dashed towards Danzo, the full weight of what he had done finally dawning on him. He had killed Karen and he was going to pay. When the last Anbu died, the clones vanished. Naruto approached Danzo and saw the old man begin performing the hand seal, but Naruto wouldn't let him. Bansho Tenin. A wave of force drew Danzo towards Naruto, catching him off guard and breaking his concentration. As soon as he could, Naruto used the Asura Path to create as many sharp objects as he could on his right hand, grabbing Danzo by the neck and ripping Danzo's arm to shreds before he could react. He didn't stop there. He shoved his hand into Danzo's eye socket, ripping Shisui's Mangekyo Sharingan out and crushing it in front of the Warhawk, slammed Danzo on the ground several times before coating his hand in lightning and shocking Danzo, causing him to scream in pain. Die, you son of a bitch. Naruto yelled before shoving his hand into Danzo's chest and using the human path to rip out his soul, then using the Asura Path to turn his arm into a laser and completely disintegrate Danzo's body. He took a step back and exhaled before hearing Tsunade's grim voice calling to him. We can't remove the seal without killing her. She needs a perfect heart transplant or she will die. He was by her side a moment later and said to Karen, "Can you keep her alive in the absence of her heart?" "Only temporarily," Tsunade stated. "We wouldn't be able to transplant another heart even if we had one." He shook his head and summoned the King of Hell via the Naraka path. "What the hell is that?" Jiraiya inquired. "The Naraka path can heal any injury, but if she dies, it's game over. You must remove her heart and keep her alive until it can recreate her heart," Naruto explained to Tsunade. She appeared conflicted, but Kushina spoke up. "I believe in you. Let's do this." He gave her a small smile before showing her what had happened with a quick genjutsu. "You can turn back time," she exclaimed, stunned. "What?" exclaimed both Minato and Jiraiya. He said, shaking his head. "Never mind, let's save her." Kushina nodded, and the three carried Karen inside the King of Hell's mouth, while Minato and Jiraiya stood guard outside. Once inside, Naruto took a deep breath and said to Kushina, "I believe in you. Please don't let her die." Kushina said with a smile, "What did I say before? She's family, and I'm not giving up on her so easily." He smiled and nodded before leaving the two to care for Karen. The next few hours were nerve-wracking for Naruto, as they had to carefully perform the heart removal to ensure she didn't die, and then Tsunade had to keep her alive while the Naraka path healed her. Naruto was just glad that neither Jiraiya nor Minato tried to capture him, even if he had to tell Minato that he was leaving as soon as Karen was okay and that he was prepared to fight his way out if necessary. After a few minutes, Jiraiya left to calm things down in the village, and Naruto was glad that they realized that if he used force, a lot more people would die. When they questioned him about the Rinnegan, the only thing he revealed was that Zetsu was out there with another pair. He knew he needed to find the plant man, but he had no leads, and the only thing he could do was stick to his plan and wait for Zetsu to appear. After what seemed like an eternity in Naruto's opinion, two women emerged carrying Karen, and Naruto was already walking towards her when Tsunade spoke. "She'll be fine. That thing completely healed her. She just needs to rest now," Naruto said with a nod. "Thank you, Tsunade. She's very important to me, and I don't want to lose her, as I'm sure you can understand." "I do, but you're still a missing nin. We'll be enemies the next time we meet." Naruto sighed and explained. "What's the big deal? I just want to be left alone. If Danzo hadn't taken her, I'd probably never come back to Konoha again. However, you must be punished for your crimes," Naruto said with a shake of his head. "Let's not get into that right now. All I want to do is go back to base and wait for her to wake up." When Kushina said, Naruto began to walk away. "I'm glad you found someone you like, Naruto." "So am I," he chuckled as he dashed out of the base, disappearing into Kamui with Karen in his arms as soon as he was outside the space-time lock. Kushina couldn't help but smile as she looked up at the sky. Her son was fine. After a week, Naruto didn't leave Karen's bedside for a single moment after they returned to base. She hadn't awoken while in Danzo's care, and he had been content to simply use her as leverage, so besides the surgery, he hadn't done anything to her. That was far too much for Naruto, who apologized profusely for not being able to protect her. She assured him that she was fine and chastised him for worrying too much, but he still stayed with her until she was fully rested. He had been reluctant to tell her the truth, but in the end, he did. She made fun of him for charging into Konoha without a plan when he was usually so focused on his plan. Her cheerful demeanor changed a bit when he told her she died, but he couldn't help but smile at the strength she displayed when she bounced back from the revelation and told him that she didn't blame him and was glad that he managed to undo that and save her. Naruto went to seal Saiken after she was finally back on her feet, but he insisted on her being near him throughout the entire process, which she complained about being boring, but he could tell she was happy that he was that concerned about her. Orochimaru had also heard about Naruto's Rinnegan ability, but the blonde insisted that any experiments with it would have to wait until he had reached his goal. He was too close to stop now. He also told Orochimaru that Rinnegan abilities were unique to each person, and he had no idea what kind of ability the Sannin would get. Finally, after a week, the team gathered again. Sasuke had removed his blindfold and proudly displayed his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Orochimaru had finished his Zetsu body. It had been injected with 6 paths chakra and Orochimaru switched into it for the mission. He still couldn't use the Rinnegan, but the body could handle any of his other jutsu and the Sannin was looking forward to using some of them. "Before we begin," Sasuke said, drawing everyone's attention, before turning to Karen and saying, "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I should have done more. Don't worry, you did the right thing. If you hadn't, they would have captured you as well, and where would we be?" she said. "Even so," he added, "I told them not to worry, I'm fine, and besides, I chose to jump in front of the attack myself." Sasuke thanked her and nodded. She smiled, and Naruto began. "Okay. I already know who the next targets are. We need to move quickly, but after we were seen capturing Chome and Saiken went missing, people will connect the dots. I'm pretty sure Konoha already knows I'm after the tailed beasts." "Why do you believe that, Naruto-kun?" Orochimaru inquired. "Itachi was a Jiraiya spy." "He was?" Orochimaru was taken aback. Naruto said with a nod. "They don't know why, but they know I'm after them, and they won't just let me get them undisturbed, not to mention how the other villages, particularly Iwa and Kumo, have noticed the disappearance of the tailed beasts and will become paranoid." "That's correct, so who's the next target?" Karen inquired. "We're after Son Goku and Kakuo." "Are you sure we're going to Iwa?" "No," he said, "Sasuke, Orochimaru, and I are going to Iwa, but you will stay here." He spoke before she could complain, so she frowned. "An unwanted Jinchuriki of a small village with me right beside you ready to step in if necessary is one thing, but a mission that will most likely end in a fight in the middle of one of the 5 great nations with hundreds of enemy ninja, possible S ranks, and a guaranteed cage is something entirely different. This is far too dangerous for almost anyone." "But how are we going to pull this off, Naruto-kun, if it's so dangerous?" Orochimaru wondered. "I'm going to cause some chaos and distract Onoki and most of their forces. Because we need to move quickly, I'll go in hot and create a main battlefield just outside the village. While I'm doing that, you two will sneak in and each take on a Jinchuriki, neutralize them but don't kill them, and if possible, don't let them perform a full manifestation. Once they're dealt with, you'll bring them to our meeting point and give me." They nodded, and he grinned. This was going to be a good time. That night, Onoki was in his office, finishing up his paperwork for the day and preparing to go home. He was exhausted and couldn't wait to get some rest for the evening. The Tsuchikage's last few years had been especially taxing, and he couldn't wait to hand over the hat to a worthy successor. Unfortunately, finding one was more difficult than it appeared, and he didn't have anyone he trusted to take the hat from him. He knew he needed to retire, his advisors and granddaughter told him all the time, but despite his age, he was still a very good shinobi, he still had sharp instincts, and what he physically lost with age, he gained mentally. Those instincts warned him that big trouble was on the way moments before a vortex appeared in his office and a blonde teenager emerged from it. Onoki was immediately on guard, and the Anbu hiding in his office moved quickly to restrain the intruder. "Do you greet all of your guests like this?"
Naruto inquired, gesticulating to the blades poised to pierce him in multiple vital areas.
"Who are you?" asked Onoki. "My name is Naruto," the blonde said as she passed through the Anbu and sat in the chair before Onoki. Onoki took a look at him and immediately recognized the blonde. "You're Golden Dawn," he said suspiciously. "Oh yeah. That's what they called me in the bingo book," Naruto recalled, laughing. "You're Namikaze's son," growled Onoki. Before he spoke, Naruto looked at him in silence, his face neutral. "I'd appreciate it if you didn't associate me with that jerk." "Oh," Onoki exclaimed. "Do you dislike him?" "Don't like him?" Naruto asked, laughing. "I might be the only person in the elemental nations who despises him more than you do." "Is that correct?" Onoki inquired, a glint in his eye. "May I inquire as to why?" Bastard thought turning me into a Jinchuriki was an acceptable solution, but didn't think I'd hold a grudge at being turned into a living weapon, Naruto chuckled. "I'm sure you heard what I said, but I'm surprised you didn't take advantage of Konoha's Jinchuriki-lessness and heavy damage." "Believe me, I wanted to," said Onoki. "But, unfortunately, that cretin came back from the dead, and I couldn't send my forces against Konoha with him there. especially since Konoha appears to be capable of resurrecting cage-level shinobi. I'm sorry about that. So you brought him back, Onoki said, and Naruto heard both aggression and curiosity in his voice. Believe me, as far as I'm concerned, that bastard deserves to rot, and I would never have brought him back had I any other choice. Unfortunately, he had something I needed, and afterward he managed to do something supposedly impossible, and I couldn't send him back to hell where he belongs anymore. He does have a habit of pulling off the impossible just to fuck with you, Onoki said, nodding. Naruto nodded, and Onoki inquired. Say, we really could use someone like you. Naruto couldn't stop himself from laughing. What the hell is so funny? Frowned Onoki. Oh no, it's just. A few years ago, the Mizukage made me the same offer. The one you murdered? No, Mei Terumi, the one who took over later. I see, said Onoki. I assume you declined? Kiri's nice and all, especially with Mei getting rid of all that bloody mist crap, but I'm not willing to be ordered around. I value my freedom to make my own decisions. Onoki said with a shake of his head. You rebellious teenagers are all the same. You're all the same as my granddaughter. By the way, how is Kuretsuchi? Onoki spit at him and glared at him. Whatever you do to her. Naruto laughed as he shook his head. Oh, don't worry, I've never met her. How did you find out about her? I know a lot of things, you should be proud, she is a strong kunoichi. I don't know how things are in Iwa, but most female ninjas were fangirls back in my Konoha days. We have this problem as well, but we usually beat them into shape quickly enough, and I'm proud Kuretsuchi is as strong as she is. Naruto smiled and stood up, chuckling as Onoki remained on guard, the Anbu that he had signaled to stop ready to jump in. He looked at Tsuchikage and said. Not that our conversation isn't entertaining, but I'm afraid we need to get down to business. Are you finally going to explain why you came here? I came here to spar with you. So I have to teach you to respect your elders, brat? Onoki grumbled. Whatever you say, old man, let's just take this outside the village. I don't want you to hold back because you were protecting the village. What if I say no? Onoki inquired. You are the Tsuchikage, and if you do not fight me willingly, I will attack your village and force your hand. With that, Naruto jumped out the window and dashed towards the village gates, the Tsuchikage flying behind him and more ninja following behind their leader, casting a glance in the direction of where he felt both Jinchuriki, Orochimaru, and Sasuke should be. He smirked as he landed just outside the village gates, Onoki in front of him and dozens of Iwa nin encircling him, with more appearing all the time. There's still time, brat, to back down and surrender. Oh, but that's no fun, he laughed. Very well, Onoki said as he formed a light cube. Particle style. Primitive world detachment. The cube moved to surround the blonde, but it vanished just as it was about to touch him. What? Onoki exclaimed, stunned. I've been meaning to properly test these out in combat, Naruto said, proudly displaying his Rinnegan. Those eyes. What are you? Exclaimed Onoki. Let's get this party started. Naruto yelled as he pointed his hands at Onoki, his grin never leaving his face. Shinra Tensei. Naruto chuckled to himself as a powerful wave of force hit Onoki, sending him flying through the village walls and into several buildings. Well, I can't think of many more obvious signals than this one. You think? Kurama sarcastically asked. The Iwa nin started throwing jutsu at him, which he dodged before slamming his hand on the ground and shouting. Rinnegan's call. The summoned animals all ran towards the Iwa forces, and a chaotic battle ensued, with ninja dying all around as the summons simply refused to die, taking massive amounts of damage without stopping. A Naruto clone appeared out of nowhere and said, I'm going to play. Sure, but don't forget about the plan. I got it, Kurama said. They dashed towards the Iwa forces, using the outer path to create black chakra rods and stabbing the enemies with them. Naruto shook his head and looked back, his face filled with rage. Be careful, old man, I'd be disappointed if I won by heart attack, Naruto joked. Onoki growled and flew at Naruto, his hand covered in stone in the shape of a fist, and they collided. Naruto's superior strength pushed Onoki away, and he jumped on top of his summoned drill-beaked bird and transformed his arm into a laser cannon. Catch me if you can, Naruto said sarcastically as the bird flew up and he fired a barrage of laser shots at Onoki. A few moments ago, Sasuke stood hidden on a rooftop, his gaze fixed on his prey, Han, the Jinchuriki of Kakuo, the Gobi. They had infiltrated the village using Naruto's Kamui, and he had waited near his target while the blonde went to create a distraction. Sasuke was lost in thought for a moment and remembered Itachi. He smiled, his vengeance had been completed, the traitor was dead, and Sasuke was relieved to finally be free of that weight hanging over him. All that remained was to repopulate the Uchiha clan. For a brief moment, he was reminded of Sakura, how he had begun to tolerate the girl back when they were a team, and he shook his head. He wanted a strong kunoichi to repopulate the clan with, and despite the growth he had been told she had gone through, he was still uninterested in her. He then remembered that foul-mouthed redhead from Auto. He had fun with her on occasion, but it was only on a casual basis. Neither he nor she wanted the two to be together forever. He ignored the train of thought. He could worry about it later. Naruto was counting on him now, and he would not let the blonde down. He felt bad enough about what had happened to Karen, whom he had come to regard as a sister, and he refused to fail again. He came to when a section of the village wall and several buildings nearby collapsed, which he took as a sign. He put on his confident Uchiha grin, and just as the Jinchuriki was about to move towards the intruder, Sasuke struck. He quietly descended from the rooftop and landed on top of the target, his sword covered in lightning. Mid-strike, Han recovered enough from his shock to block the strike with his forearm. The blade bit deep, almost severing the appendage, and Sasuke increased his attack force, intending to cut Han's hand off, but the Jinchuriki blasted Sasuke with steam, forcing the Uchiha to release the blade and back off. So you're one of the people causing all this commotion, Han pointed out. I'm just here for the beast inside you, though I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking forward to putting myself to the test against you. You're going to regret this, Han sneered. I doubt it, Sasuke said, and the blade Han had removed shot a lightning spear from behind Han. The Jinchuriki dodged the attack but was cut on the other arm. The lightning spear connected with Sasuke's hand and he pulled the blade back to him. Han charged at him and the Uchiha dodged the first few blows before blocking one of them. He was thrown back through a wall by the sheer force of the blow, but he managed to stop himself, and when his Sharingan saw the next blow coming, he ducked under it and uppercut Han in the jaw before kicking him away and moving through hand seals. Dragon's Breath Fire Style. A stream of fire flew towards Han, but the Jinchuriki seemed to ignore it as he dashed back towards Sasuke. Now that Sasuke was expecting the strength, he was able to keep up with it without much difficulty and engaged in a quick taijutsu bout. He noticed that nothing he did to Han seemed to slow him down, so he decided to step it up a notch. The next blow he launched was powered by his own super strength. He hit Han in the gut and the Jinchuriki was caught off guard as he staggered. Sasuke took advantage of the momentary distraction to perform a quick jutsu. Electromagnetic Murder in Lightning Style. Even though Sasuke saw the damage done healing quickly, he smirked and dashed towards Han. His hand burst into lightning as he performed what had become his favorite technique, and the Jinchuriki only had time to widen his eyes in shock and put up a hasty block before Sasuke was upon him. The Chidori pierced both of Han's hands, but Han used the pain as motivation to kick Sasuke away. The Uchiha managed to catch himself and saw Han covered in a familiar cloak of red chakra, and despite the fact that this was not going as planned, he couldn't help but smile. His Sharingan transformed into the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, and the Susanoo burst to life around him. Excitedly, he looked up at the much larger form of the Gobi. He was having a good time. In a different part of Iwa, Orochimaru fired another jutsu at Roshi, and his face lit up. He hadn't felt this good in ages, and he could now use all the jutsu he had painstakingly learned and mastered. His new body gave him incredible power. He could withstand blows that would have forced him to regenerate his previous bodies, he had more chakra than ever before, and he could even use the Shodem Hokage's famous wood release, though not with the same level of power because he still didn't have that much chakra. But the best part for him was that, unlike all his other bodies, in this one, he couldn't feel it reject him at all. Quite the opposite. It felt like the body shifted and changed to better accommodate him. It was everything he ever wanted in a body, and that didn't even get into the Rinnegan he had yet to unlock. He had already wanted it, but after seeing Naruto's in action and especially after learning of his time-related ability, Orochimaru couldn't wait to awaken his own. He ducked under Roshi's punch and sent a wave of wind at the Jinchuriki, blasting him away. Orochimaru then sent several snakes at him, and as soon as he was immobilized, he performed the hand seals that his old sensei had shown him and his old team all those years ago. Wood spear wood style. Orochimaru felt his chakra in fascination, the way it reacted, the sheer life coursing through his body, it was amazing. Roshi's eyes widened and he barely managed to get out of the way. Roshi yelled as he escaped from the snakes. "How the hell did you get that?" Seeing what Roshi said, Orochimaru gave his trademark chuckle but did not respond. "Alright, time to go all out." Orochimaru's chuckle turned into full-blown laughter as he turned to Roshi and spoke, his tone gleeful. Roshi was covered in chakra, but it wasn't the usual tailed beast cloak, it was a coat of extremely hot chakra that soon manifested an armor made of lava on his body. "I couldn't agree with you more." Orochimaru's pale skin began to change, his black silky hair burst into purple flames, and two white horns sprouted from both sides of his head. His yellow eyes began to shine until only their glow could be seen, and the black markings around them spread, and his chakra seemed to come alive as several purple chakra snakes manifested and stood protectively around him, their movements enchanting. He took a deep, shuddering, orgasmic breath and smiled, his tone twisted with delight as he spoke. "You have no idea how much I missed this feeling, Snake Sage mode." Orochimaru was already upon him, the ethereal snakes grabbing, seemingly unhindered by his lava chakra mode, and raising him as Orochimaru used his jutsu point blank. Sage Art. Fire Destruction. Great Fire Release. Even though the lava release armor Roshi received several severe burns before the technique was finally extinguished, Orochimaru threw him away, and as soon as Roshi was up again, he used his own technique. Lava Wave. Lava Style. Despite the massive wave of lava approaching him, Orochimaru chuckled as he countered with another of his techniques. Water Style. Massive Crushing Tsunami by Sage Art. His wave collided with Roshi's and cooled the lava down to molten rock, but it didn't stop, and Roshi barely managed to jump away in time to avoid being hit by the technique. He was midway through the jump when Orochimaru appeared next to him. He tried to block the punch, but it was too much and he created a crater on the ground when he hit it. Orochimaru was about to continue with his assault when he heard a massive roar in the distance and felt a massive amount of tailed beast chakra. He looked towards it and saw the Gobi in its full form, Sasuke's Susanoo right next to it and raining Amaterasu arrows on the Biju. "Looks like Sasuke-kun got carried away," he chuckled. "You bastards are done now," Roshi said, his breathing heavily without his lava armor, and his injuries were numerous. He then began to cover himself in tailed beast chakra, intending to perform a full manifestation, but Orochimaru knew what he was up to. "I'm afraid I won't be able to let you do that." Orochimaru slammed his hand into Roshi's stomach, specifically the seal containing Son Goku. The 5 elements seal appeared and severed the connection between Jinchuriki and Biju. Roshi collapsed, and Orochimaru grabbed him. He turned one last time towards the battle between Sasuke and Han before dash towards the meeting point, carrying one of their targets. On the main battleground. When Naruto felt Kakuo perform its full manifestation, his battle came to a halt, and both he and the Tsuchikage saw the Biju's massive form in the middle of the village. "What the hell is he doing?" exclaimed Onoki. "He's going to destroy the village in this manner." "If I had to guess, he lost control," Naruto chuckled. Onoki scowled. He tried to move towards it, but Naruto stopped him. The blonde kept chasing him and cutting Onoki off with his hail of lasers. The casualties were high down below. They had managed to restrain most summoning animals, but it had taken a heavy toll on them, and Kurama was still going wild on them. Soon after receiving the signal that Orochimaru had arrived at the meeting place, Naruto sighed and dispelled all of his summons except the drill-beaked bird. This was also the signal for Kurama to dispel. "Let's go get Sasuke." It had to be a Uchiha, Kurama concluded. Naruto turned to face Onoki, shaking his head. "I'm sorry, old man, but it appears that my time has come to an end. If you think I'm just going to let you go after all this, think again." Naruto interrupted him with a jutsu. Shinra Tensai. Onoki tried to dodge but failed, and he was sent flying, but Naruto didn't pay attention, and the bird flew towards where Sasuke's battle was taking place, and as soon as he was above it, Naruto extended his hands, and the outer path chains shot forward, restraining the tailed beast. "I had this," Sasuke grumbled. "I'm sure you do, but Orochimaru has already arrived at the rendezvous point." Sasuke grunted but turned his M's to the Gobi. The beast howled in pain as its eyes turned into Sharingan before dissipating, leaving only Han's unconscious form, which Sasuke grabbed and jumped on. "Had fun fighting a Biju?" teased Naruto. They flew towards the meeting point, and soon dropped out of the bird to avoid being easily followed, and moved the rest of the way there on foot, where they saw Orochimaru and Roshi waiting. "How is the new body?" Naruto inquired. "Amazing, I feel fantastic, and I even used Sage Mode," Orochimaru exclaimed. "I'll be honest, I'm a little jealous that you have Snake Sage Mode and I only have the Toad version." Orochimaru chuckled, and Naruto smiled. Everything was going as planned, and he was one step closer to his goal when he spoke. "Well, gentlemen, that was a successful mission. Now let us return home." The other two nodded, and he was about to teleport everyone away when he noticed something moving extremely fast towards him. He turned towards it and immediately went on guard while shouting, "Incoming!" The figure slammed into the ground, kicking up a cloud of smoke. Both Sasuke and Orochimaru were immediately on guard, and they all watched the figure warily. The smoke soon dissipated, and they all recognized who it was. How could they not? It was one of the most legendary figures in the history of shinobi. His skin was pale, almost ghostly, his spiky black hair seemed to shine as it moved gently in the wind, his high-collar black shirt and blue pants were traditional and gave off an aura of pride all too familiar to Sasuke. The red plate serving as armor around him told a tale of war and conflict, but it was the gunbai in his back, the symbol of the Uchiha clan proudly displayed on it, that seemed to stand out. Though the blonde could feel the Kyuubi's hatred when they growled the man's name, it was Naruto who whispered it. Madara.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.